Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Fed Up, your no BS nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, working with clients since 2014. After swimming up diet culture's bullshit stream for so many years, I am fed the absolute up with how miserable it's making people feel when we are supposed to be getting healthier. This podcast is here to help you gain your sanity back so you can stop yo-yoing once and for all and finally learn how to trust yourself so you can enjoy food again without fear or shame while still getting to your health goals. My aim is to teach you how to detect the BS in not just the food and diet industries, but in all realms of life, because I know that, like me, we are all just a little fed up. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Okay, can I just say something crazy? Let's talk about this whole use of the term or the phrase real food, particularly with the new dietary guidelines for Americans out and the upside down pyramid. And then the phrase that they're using over and over is eat real food. That's the motto. And I also hear it in my own life for the past however many years that I've been doing this and been paying attention. Even like recently, my sister-in-law was telling her daughters they need to eat some real food before eating Halloween candy. Or someone saying, oh, I just need to eat real food after a long road trip. And it's just been like fast food and gas station food, right? Or just like health conscious people being like, I need to eat real food, like don't eat all that junk crap. But like, what is real food? Because now it's in our official guidelines and they've never really defined it. They don't even really define what ultra processed food is, which is why dietitians have a problem with the wording and the language. And they say in the guidelines to avoid processed food and focus on whole foods. That does seem a little clearer, but what irks me about this language is a 3-year-old does not know that chicken is considered a real food, but candy is not, or chocolate is not, because to them, you can eat both. Both are real food, right? They play with fake food. So maybe when we adults start interpreting it as whole, unaltered food, but we really have no idea what processing really is because we're so far removed from our food system, and a lot of us are really privileged AF, especially if you are scrolling social media in your spare time, no offense. But when you are looking at this, what is processing? It is technically any alteration of the food, including cutting it, cleaning it, dyeing it, grinding it, blending it. If you think eggs just like come in the same exact color, the eggs in the store are refrigerated because they've also been washed. This is why you don't need to you don't need to store unwashed farm fresh eggs in the cold because they're okay at room temperature. They have like this protective shield over them. That's why chickens can just lay eggs in the wild, in their outside environment. But when you buy eggs around the store, they have to be refrigerated, right? So they're all processed. And then even if you look at anything in a package or a box, including your meat, like they've processed the animal. If you talk to a hunter or a butcher, when they are actually taking the animal into the, slaughterhouse, they're processing it and then they're butchering it and then they're packaging it. Like that's all processing. So if you don't really specify, well, what foods have been processed that are actually healthy for us, it's kind of a murky water. And don't assume that everybody knows. Oh, we know that they're meaning like ultra processed foods like Skittles or whatever it is. But yet, in the same goddamn breath, they will try to sell you their AG1 greens powders or like protein bars or gummy supplements. Those are such like, why are those okay when they're way less regulated than what's in our food system, and they're highly processed and they're not even like shown to be beneficial to our health really that much? So speaking of supplements really quick, why is it that these wellness gurus are okay with like popping pills and gummies for supplements, but then when we fortify foods for population health, we're demonizing enriched flour products or cereals, right? And it's not just because like, oh, well, the nutrients are lost during processing and cooking, and then they have to put it back in. Like that might be a little bit true, but we also enrich because a population that's deficient in things like folate or niacin is going to have permanent, severe long-lasting complications population-wide, and they've shown this. So California recently said that they are actually going to be fortifying folic acid into like maize and corn products, and currently only flour, tortilla and flour things are. And so some people in the comment section that I was bruising over were like, well, why don't we just give pregnant women the supplement? Why force the entire population to take a supplement they don't want to take? And this is the thing that you don't understand. Like, thank you for just like totally, I don't know, diminishing the importance of mothers, especially in a population. Like moms, if there's no females, there's no population. You know what I'm saying? So that just tells me that you don't really understand how women and pregnancy works, because despite being a woman who commented this, like folate deficiency, first of all, let's take you to school. Folate deficiency results in permanent spinal tube defects in the womb within the earliest parts of pregnancy, because the spinal cord is what forms first before a woman even knows she's pregnant. And if you do not have folate, then the neural tube doesn't close, which causes what we call spina bifida. And this is where brains and spinal cords will literally grow outside the body, outside the brain, outside the skull. Outside the brain. Yeah, the brain is outside the skull. And some babies are carried to term this way, and they can survive a couple of years. But if you've ever seen a toddler laying in a crib with spina bifida, it is not a good place to go in my mind, because I went to Guatemala once years ago with my church, and we went to this hospital, and it's essentially for disabled children who get abandoned by their families for many different reasons. And they had this room filled with cribs and baby beds, just like lined up, you had to like squeeze through them. And babies as young as just like a few months old to toddlers a few years old, they're just vegetables, and no one comes to see them. They just abandon their babies. Like there's not a lot of resources in the area that I was in. It's not like they can just go get an abortion. It's not like they can just go, drop it off at like a happy little orphanage where someone's going to take care of some, child that honestly is like permanently disabled and a vegetable. So you are just kind of waiting for them to pass. So this is not a little like, oh, you just get a little cleft lip in the womb. No. Supplementing women after they find out they're pregnant is also assuming that every pregnant woman has access to that medical care. And deficient mothers, deficient population. And it has generational effects. So you might have health defects that are because your grandmother was deficient in a vitamin. I'm not even shitting you. So why are we okay with like supplements and detox teas and literally taking horse dewormer? Yes, that's a thing. But yet we're mad about fortifying flour so that we don't have that crisis on our hands anymore. And like, again, like cases of spina bifida have drastically decreased, that you probably have never met or known anybody that gets spina bifida, especially in most areas of the US. So I'll get off my soapbox there, but let me just hop right on another one, because I did overhear a conversation in the hot sauna this past weekend where a younger woman, maybe in her 30s, and an older woman in her 60s, they were talking about horse dewormer. And the younger woman was straight up like, oh, how do you like it? How does it feel? I was thinking about getting it, like full on invested. And this older woman in her 60s was like, yeah, I just take a little bit of the horse dewormer every single morning, and make sure just buy the horse dewormer. It's way cheaper, blah, blah, blah. You just like go to the feed store, because we're in Montana. And like when she asked how she felt a difference, she didn't really say how or why or like what she felt a difference in or how she felt better, really. She just kind of said like, oh, it really clears everything out. I noticed such a difference. Like, girl, such a difference in what? Your ability to hold your shit? Like, I can't. But I was a real good girl, and I turned my headphones up and I did not join the conversation. I was pretty proud of myself, because I am somebody who like cannot shut up. That's why I have a podcast. Anyway, that's a real big step for me, not to intervene in other people's, conversations, but also especially when they're in like close proximity, like they're all strangers. I was in the conversation a second earlier with the girl before they brought up the horse dewormer, and I just I'm so passionate about this. This is why I have a podcast. This is why I'm going to school. This is why I do what I do. It just comes up everywhere though, like everywhere. And I'm thinking too, like the woman behind me who's not participating in the conversation, but she was listening because she didn't have any headphones in. And I'm thinking like, what if this girl like goes home and tries horse dewormer? And it's like, wait, aren't we supposed to be protecting our GI and like our gut microbiome? How do you think that that's okay? And then like I have another person that I know who like has recently tried some enemas. And I'm like, girl, your problem is that you're shitting too much. Like you can't hold food in and you're not absorbing my like nutrients because your food goes through you too quickly. You have constant diarrhea. So your solution is to go and flush yourself out even more. Like, I don't understand. Anyway, processing does not mean the food is bad. But don't take a horse dewormer. No, you know what I mean? Like this dichotomy between like, let's eat really healthy, and then like the extremes that people go into like the complete opposite direction, it has me baffled. And we have specific like foods that are formulated for like malnourished people or people with disease or infants or pregnant people or like that's all processed and it's healthy as hell because it's keeping people alive, if that's your definition of, I guess, healthy. Or as a future dietitian, our job is to prevent malnutrition in like things like the ICU or when a diabetes, if you're in a diabetes clinic or something like that and you're seeing patients outpatient or inpatient, like our job is to make sure that you don't waste away. So we're going to give you the supplements and the proteins and the things that we have to give you to make sure that your body can function with the processes it needs. So like supplementing with protein powders and the fact that like Fairlife can put extra protein in their milk, that's all processing and it's all brilliant and it's all beautiful. So sure, if you're thinking of processing as like the high calorie, low nutrient cheese puffs, then like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be making all of your meals cheese puffs or like be aware of if you're eating from the bag when you're bored or you're making dinner and you're accidentally consuming 500 extra calories of cheese puffs or like you don't even eat dinner because you're just eating cheese puffs. Those are probably not very conducive to a healthy eating pattern, but like no one's arguing that it is. You know what I mean? And like one thing else that I don't really like about this wording is a lot of people are saying, finally, we're focusing on real food. Dietitians and nutritionists and personal trainers, literally what I'm doing with my life as a career for the past 11 freaking years. Do you not think we have been trying to get people to lay off the cheese puffs and the ice cream and the alcohol and like don't go through the drive-thru and use DoorDash so much, like freaking make a meal. Like we are trying to help people gain skills in the kitchen, gain skills when they're grocery shopping and eat more whole foods and know how to prepare vegetables so that they actually freaking taste good. But like no one's arguing that Skittles is healthy for you. No one's arguing that McDonald's French fries is like the best thing or that you should have, French fries over a plain baked potato. But like it's also something that we need to take into consideration that there's a whole system here that just telling people to eat one way versus another is not going to change the fact that McDonald's is really easy to drive through. It's in every freaking neighborhood. And I grew up in a food swamp where there's not a lot of there's no Whole Foods there, and sorry, we're going to eat what's at the gas station and what's at McDonald's and what's at like the random small Asian fish market. And it's what you have access to is a huge, huge indicator of your health. So that besides the point, if you are looking at like what's going to make a healthy eating pattern, again, part of it is what you have access to, right? Not everybody gets to eat avocados every freaking day. So check your privilege, but also to like, okay, if you're going to have some cheese puffs on the side of a sandwich, a high protein, high fiber sandwich, do you know that the number one consumed processed food in America that they categorized in some stupid study unofficially was sandwiches? Because granted, there's a lot of processing that goes through, right? The bread, the cheese, the meat, the lettuce, like everything's chopped, everything's prepared. That's a processed food. But like if you have it with an apple and, some cheese puffs, it's really not a big deal. You're probably getting all the nutrition you need. And so real food is really just a marketing term, honestly used to like define accessible food choices and then completely ignore the whole supplemental side of things anyway, or the fact that you haven't even defined what processing is or what is considered a healthy processed food versus not. And I'm not saying frozen pizzas and corn dogs are the best for you. I'm not saying all the food in our food system is healthy. But again, healthy has more to do with your overall eating style, the motivations that drive your eating, because you could eat real healthy, but the motivations driving it are real unhealthy. And if you are getting an overall rounded diet with a variety of foods that provide the things your body needs, protein, carbs, fats, vitamins, minerals, water, fiber, that's the bulk of it. Wherever it comes from, honey. But you got to be eating enough of it. And if you're obsessing over food, it doesn't really matter what you eat. It's not going to be healthy. If you're afraid to eat any food that's not healthy, we call that orthorexia, and it is classified as an eating disorder. And there's a difference between that and like enjoying and choosing a mostly nutrient-dense diet without stress, and maybe also enjoying an ice cream date without stress. Again, using a mixture of whole foods and processed foods and not stressing about it because you are nourished and happy and you're getting all your vitamins. The internal stress that it causes you when you're like eating foods that you're quote unquote not supposed to have or isn't as healthy for you as another food that you should have chose, and now you're like, well, F it, blah, blah, blah. That internal stress, as we've talked about in several episodes here, that is what causes you to restrict. You binge, you overthink, you obsess, you are we call it food preoccupation, or food noise is kind of the term that's going around on social media. And it's causing this shame, this guilt, which leads to self-sabotage. It leads to disordered eating behavior, whether you're overeating or undereating, right? You know the story. So eat real food, quote unquote, tells me that even our politicians kind of fall for this, what we call appeal to nature fallacy. If it's natural, that means it's better for you, right? That means it's good. But as I say all the time, real, like natural things try to kill you all the time. That doesn't mean anything about the health. And that is, you know what's real ironic in this AI up and coming world? Like WTF, right? You're going to tell me, oh, eat real food, everything from the earth, natural, organic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, AI is just creating humans out of thin air to be telling us to eat real food, everything clean, nothing man-made. We hate billionaires, and yet the consumers are the consumers who create billionaires. And then the algorithm is showing you more and more stupid bullshit. And then AI is also a part of the conversation. Like, that is freaking wild to me. Anyway, my motto is, here's my poem. I wrote it for you. Food is food, fed is fed, and fed is best, whether it comes from the earth or somewhere from the rest. I'm still working on it. It just rhymed, best and rest. You know what I mean? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed my discussion with myself, and forward it to a friend. Share a review because I would love your feedback. 5 stars. Whoop, whoop. Love you all. Talk to you next week. Bye. Thanks so much for being here, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and tag me over on Instagram or leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening from. Your support means the world to me and only helps me get the No BS news out to more people. If you're interested in working with me in nutrition or personal training, check out my programs and courses on my website at kaylamariefitness.com and on Instagram at kaylamari_fit. See you next week.